tell you.
Yeah.
I'm really not so hot on having to do a squat. I got a lot of knots and I'm afraid of clots, but I'll give it a shot, liking it or not. Yeah, I'm hot to trot, 'cause I don't want to wake up dead. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Posturing for Day. I'm Bill.
I'm Gina.
And we are going to continue our exploration in the wonderful wide world of squatting. So hopefully, at the end of this program, if somebody comes up to you and says, "You don't know squat," you can say, "Oh, yes, I do." And a quick reminder, this program is brought to you by Chi Whiz, Chi in a can.
Nope.
Ask for it by name.
That was kind of nice.
There you go. See, I'm trying to be nice. Give me a little chibi there.
Do that the whole show.
All right, so what you got for us today?
So we started talking about squats on Monday, and I think what I realized in retrospect was that there's a lot movement-wise you could talk about, like what can you learn from being able to do a squat or not. And so how to hone in on maybe one aspect of squatting, which I think is relevant to other areas of life. So how do we get into a squat and out of it is really a very important piece of that. So the mechanics that we are using to lift and lower ourselves into and out of a squat also apply to getting in and out of a chair of any height, also applying to going up and down the stairs, and also applies to walking. So the question is really, how are we transferring our center of gravity, our center of mass, over one foot to another, or from a sitting position to a standing position and back down again? Are we using our muscles? Are we using momentum? Are we using gravity? It's usually a combination of those, but it's important to be able to kind of tease out what exactly it is you're using, because ultimately it's going to matter to the health of your knees and your feet and other parts of your body. So that's what we're going to talk about today, in as much as I can articulate it. All right, so we kind of touched on this on Monday, but we're going to see if we can explore this in this small visual space that we have. I'm going to use a slightly lower level here, I think, to start. So again, we're talking about the transferring of your center of gravity from here to a standing position. Okay, are we using our back ends to do this? Are we using our front ends to do this? How much momentum are we using to get from here to the center of gravity being over the feet? And it's a slight, subtle difference, but more often than not, we tend to bypass the usage of the glute muscles, the hamstrings, and we overshoot the center, therefore using our quadriceps, our knees, and our feet almost as brakes. And it's again, a very small, subtle move that you probably wouldn't even notice, but you do this a million times a day. Again, when you're getting up from sitting, when you're walking, when you're going upstairs, and eventually it adds up, and we start to experience a lot of knee pain, the toe gripping comes into that, all of that. So we're going to see, we're going to hone in essentially on how to develop the back end muscles to be able to stabilize your center of gravity. Bill's nodding behind me, so I guess that's
I'm impressed.
All right, so I'm just going to demonstrate this first. Hopefully, I'm looking at myself. So typically what we do is, like, we tend to start with the feet under us. And then, and we might also be using our upper bodies too. We might be using hands to push off with and come down with, so that's kind of also a means of stabilizing our torso without using the strongest muscles of our body. So if we could slow this down, and I don't know if that's possible, if you think the center of gravity is here, and I'm going to come up, and I'm coming almost forward, and then coming back.
That's the way
I'm
it ought to
getting
be
a toe
done?
cramp doing that, huh?
That's the way it ought to be done?
That's what we typically do.
Okay.
It's usually very fast, but it's kind of a hoisting up. You're using that, the contraction of the quadriceps and then kind of a springboarding, and then having to put the brakes on and pull back. And I can feel that in my feet. All the way goes to the front of my feet first and then comes back. As opposed to bringing the feet out a little more under me, perpendicular to my knees, and then leaning forward and then pushing up. So the center of gravity kind of goes from here to here rather than out in front of me first and then back.
Which would require the use of the glutes more than the quads.
Exactly.
Yes, okay,
Yeah.
I'm getting it.
So that's one piece of it, and we're gonna focus on some exercises to help strengthen that ability. But the other part of it, and it's even more subtle, is the abdominal muscles are also working here too to stabilize the torso. Essentially, it's not just all of your butt muscles doing the work, it's also the abdominal muscles stabilizing the weight of the torso as you're coming up or moving forward. All right, so when we are doing our forward bends, and we were doing a little bit of this on Monday, and I was kind of offering them the spirit of stretching the hamstrings and the calf muscles. But we're gonna continue doing this, but with the spirit of practicing how to use those muscles, how to engage them in order to stabilize a torso that is moving forward off the center line. And you can start with a chair as a means of support initially. Right, so when we're doing a forward bend, again, the center of gravity is coming out in front of the feet, but we are using the glute muscles as a means of lowering, almost thinking of the sit bones as kind of the center of this movement. So the legs and the torso are here. As the center is coming down, we're not coming way out over the center line. We're kind of creating this angle. So the center is still staying over the feet. It's not way out over in front of the feet. We're maintaining the I don't know the mechanical terms
the axis,
here.
the axis, the center line of gravity?
Yeah. So it's staying over the feet, but it's being held by the glute muscles here. So my weight is over my heels. I can lift my toes up. I can relax my kneecaps. My quadriceps are relaxed in this position. And as I'm leaning forward,
Darn traffic.
as I'm leaning forward, my weight is still on the back of my feet, but I'm moving my pelvis behind me, so I'm counterbalancing. But at the same time, my abdominal muscles they're not tight, but they're engaged. I'm not just dropping the weight of my upper body, I'm holding it, and then coming down, and then I'm pushing down through my heels and bringing myself back up. Is that making sense over there? Okay. So that's one piece of that, is just being able to practice doing that, being able to come down and then coming back up without using knee bending, without using toe gripping. So I'm keeping all the weight on the back of my feet and just practicing that, just allowing my glute muscles and hamstrings to be doing the work of lowering, stabilizing, and then bringing up. Another piece of that is practicing what we call the pelvic list, where you're also engaging the glute muscles that are attached to the top of the femur, the greater trochanter of the femur, to lift the pelvis up from side to side. So as I'm pushing down through one leg, my pelvis is coming up on the other side and lifting the opposite foot up and shifting the weight. Again, keeping my weight on the back of my heels. And this takes a lot of practice too, because generally when we might get the weight on the back of the heels staying down, but as soon as you go to one leg, the tendency is to want to shift your weight to the front of the foot, because that's what we're used to using as a security measure. So being able to, and if you need to hold on to something until you get this, practice shifting your weight from one foot to the other, pushing down through the foot, and then lifting the other foot up.
The area where I would get in trouble with that is I was getting my leg off the ground because I was lifting with my quadratus lumborum,
Right.
I guess we're bringing up. And when you were telling me that side that comes up has to come up because this left glute has to pull the pelvis down.
Right.
It's contracting the left glute that brings the right leg up.
Exactly. So we're not lifting the leg up from that side with the hip hiking muscles. The quadratus lumborum is what he's saying. That is relaxed. We are contracting this muscle to bring the pelvis down so that the other foot comes up. So that's...
It's a lever.
It's a lever. It's a lever. So that's another piece of that practice. And then we're going to add that to our forward bend. Is that what we're doing? Okay. So then being able to practice coming down, shifting the weight, lifting up the foot.
Oh.
So that's where you really start to go, okay, am I engaging that muscle? That's where you'll feel like if you're hitting the right spot. Lifting up the pelvis, and then shifting, lifting, bring the foot back a little. So again, you can see my toes wiggling, my weight is still back over my heels. My kneecap's actually relaxed here. If you can see it, I can pull it up and down, meaning my quadricep is really not holding my weight here. It's still right in the back of my leg. Okay. So those are things to help you strengthen and to start engaging your brain with your butt, as it were, so you can tell when you're using it or not, and it's going to help you when you're lifting the whole of your weight from a sitting position to a standing position, and when you're walking. So same thing, when we're walking, we tend to, if we lean forward a little bit, if our habit is always to be relying on the front of the legs as we're walking, or when we're standing, when we come into walking, it's essentially like a million little falls a day. We're using gravity to help us move forward, and then we're stopping ourselves with the knee joint, with the feet, over and over again, rather than controlling the transfer of motion with the pelvic list and then coming down and then moving forward, keeping the center of gravity between the feet rather than in front of the feet. So being able to, strengthen those muscles, utilize them, is going to save as I said, your knees and your feet, and also help strengthen your pelvic floor and all of those wonderful muscles. I think I have anything else here. All right, so again, coming back to practicing, let's see, we'll start with just a chair. And so, just being able to see if you can lift and lower yourself without, it really helps if you have a mirror to look at, because you can't really necessarily tell what your bottom legs are doing. You might think like you're just, performing the movement, but it really helps to look at what your shins are doing and making sure that they are perpendicular. You're not pointing your knees out over your feet, and then here's your forward bend, lowering down, control.
We have splashdown.
We have splashdown. So here's an area,
Lift off.
We talked about momentum we use to propel ourselves up out of a sitting position. Here's where gravity comes in. You ever do this at the end of the day? You get into the couch, those last couple inches, it's like the muscles turn off and you just plop into the chair. And there's a place for that, but if you're doing that all the time, again, you are totally neglecting the use of the muscles to help you move into that sitting position. And so getting up, watching the shins, keeping them perpendicular, pelvic, leaning forward at the hip. So the weight's going onto the back of my feet, and then pushing up, there was a little bit of
I was going to say,
yeah.
I saw a little
So,
momentum going
yeah,
on
so
there.
you got to practice it. So, you know, trying different levels, and if it's harder to do that, even in a chair, you can raise the level a little bit, you know, so you're not going quite as far. See how far down you can maintain the control, and then it's not as easy as it looks. Pushing up. So that's your homework. It also helps if somebody's in front of you and they're holding your knees so they can't come forward when you're getting up and down. I think that's mostly what I wanted to share today. I hope that was interesting. Yeah.
The mind blower for me is how much I'm doing squats and all that relying solely on my quads
Mm-hmm.
and not on my glutes.
Yeah.
When we hit on that, we talked about that on Monday.
Mm-hmm.
And all day yesterday, I noticed, like, I was trying to do squats, and I can do my squats completely with my glutes offline because I can flex my glutes and release them, which means I know they're not engaged.
Right.
And this whole thing of coming up with just the glutes, I can feel that.
Yeah.
And it's like lifting weights with your butt.
So can you see yourself in the mirror? Well, come back down. So watch your shin. Yeah, you can't really see where your shins are. Your shins are, your feet are under your knee. They're more,
Okay, so
yeah.
they have to be more straight out.
Right.
Oh, yeah, right.
So,
From this point?
forward bend first. Yeah, and then
I can't.
pushing up. Yeah.
I can't do it. Not without a little jump start
Right.
to get it. And is that okay? Initially to allow like a little cheater jump start and then come up slow?
Well, if you were going to practice this as a thing to do, you would not go down that low to start with. You would start
Okay,
it
it
up.
is a low table. It's
Right.
not my fault. It's the table. Damn it. Darn it.
But you would raise the ground level up first until you could do that without thrusting yourself forward, and then lower it as you go. Yeah, it's
But I do know how important this is because yesterday I spent time looking at muscle actions
mm-hmm.
and the roles of the glutes in relation to the quads and the biceps. And I can see where it will affect your pelvic floor.
Mm-hmm.
And I can see where people are getting knee injuries and hip injuries because of the way the force is being transferred through those joints unequally, unevenly.
Right.
And that creates a shearing action. The knees, you know, kind of have this nice little
Right.
gliding hinge, and if the force isn't going through there properly, it's not going to glide, it's going to grind.
Right.
And then we find out, you know, oh, my meniscus is torn, or my whatever it is, the cartilage is wearing down.
Right.
The doctor says I have bone on bone. That didn't just happen, it got worn away.
Yeah, and so, you know, when you get deeper into practicing the squat, you find too all the little nuances of like when you go deeper enough, like what are your thighs doing? Do your feet roll out? Do your knees have to roll out or in or whatever? Like what, you know, where the hang-ups are in the hips and the legs, and that's the same, again,
Wow.
force you're going to be putting on those joints over and over again. Little side note too, I did a practice of this on Monday after we did our class. I did a online Katie class about squatting. And what was interesting, the side benefit of that, the next day, my back, which has been sore for months, was fine. It felt so good yesterday, and I don't know if it was the bazillion forward bends I was doing or the, 80,000 squats, but
Didn't you say you even got an adjustment? You trained a
yeah,
certain way and your
my
back went
low
pop?
back adjusted, and it was amazing. So there's something, again, innervating and engaging muscles that we're not using is going to take the pressure off other areas, I suppose.
Awesome.
And it was nice little side
Well,
benefit
we're
there.
almost out of time. Real quick, before we do our thought for the day, you have classes that teach this stuff.
Yep. So if you go on the posturing, I put it on the Posturing for Health site now, on posturingforhealth.com/classes. Several times a month I offer an alignment basics movement lab, And then I'm adding other areas of the body, so we've got feet and we've got desk, neck, and shoulders. So it's an hour spent just focusing on these different areas and how you can improve your mobility in them.
I'm going to put you on the spot. Who would these classes be good for?
Everybody.
That was easy. Today's thought for the day. Doubt is a pain too lonely to know that faith is his twin brother.
Aw, yeah.
That's from Khalil Gibran, who wrote the book The Prophet.
Yep. All right.
So there you have it. We will see you back Friday morning, 7:30 a.m. Be there or be square. And until then, stay out of the news.